Well, what happens next? You said you'd get to it. Like, how do we get from you're still a part of it to now you're gonna
So
go out and start your own thing?
a couple of days, maybe a week went by, because that was early December. Couple of days, whatever, a little bit of time went by, and I recircled with Toby, and I said, "Well, bud," he said, "Well, you tell me. It's your life, and you're the wrestling guy. What do you think?" And I go, I wasn't bluffing you when I told you that I think a deal will be done. And the main reason that I think the deal will be done is twofold. One, you, if we drew up a strategic partner in the dictionary, that's you. You have access to a Rolodex on all facets. That Toby said it. I don't need wrestling knowledge. I need entertain. He was a great strategic partner. And on the other side of the ledger that I told Toby over and over and his team, and they agreed, is that Panda, they didn't have to do anything, and they didn't. And we saw that where that headed, but they needed to do something bad because it was ugly. Payables were ugly, and the revenues keep going down. And it was pretty obvious there wasn't a strategic plan in place to lift the nose up and get going. And so what was next? I said, Toby, give me a little time, but if I leave and start something new, are you in? He said, Jeff, I've told you from the beginning, I'm in. We've got to create the right deal structure and figure out the right way to get this thing off the ground. But I believe in you now. I believed in you 20 years ago or whatever, 10 years ago. Yes. So his short answer was, yeah, I'm there. If that's what you think, he put not just 100% of the decision in my lap, but in return, he also said, yeah, Jeff, I'm in. We just got to kind of figure out what that looks like. And right now, I don't expect you to have that answer because you've been working better part of the last year on acquiring this place. So I know you don't have the plan in place. At least I don't think you do. And I said, I don't. I don't. So that was, kind of the situation. Talked to my attorneys and they said, look, you can't start working on another promotion while you're drawing a paycheck from it. That's a conflict of interest. You can't go start something, under this roof. And so I said, okay, then I see the writing on the wall. And look, things continue to not get better. And Conrad, you can kind of look at the AJ Styles contract. When that was coming up, end of 2013, there were a bunch of factors that I kind of knew that change had to take place. And so, Conrad, my oldest daughter was in a high school basketball tournament in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Me and the girls drove over there. And I had thought about it, but my attorney said, look, what do you think? And I said, let's just make it a clean resignation and just kind of move on, and step aside. And, they lawyers and accountants, look, my ownership, that doesn't change at all. That's a completely separate deal. As far as my, executive role, I had to resign. And so I sent that resignation letter in, and Andy Barton didn't know, Dean Broadhead didn't know, no one within the company knew. I hit send over in Hilton Head because I got up and thought about it and prayed on it. And I just, guidance and is this the right move? And I just kept coming back to, it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable, the direction it's going. And they pretty much gave me the answer, what they thought of me, under no uncertain terms. I mean, it was very clear. It wasn't a Bob issue and it wasn't a Janet issue. It was a Dixie issue that I was never either get her trust back or whatever it was. There was nothing in the cards for us working together. And so I pulled the trigger and resigned.
How did that go?
With
the resignation? Like when is it a weight lifted off your shoulders or?
yes,
Okay.
it was yes, 1,000%, 100%, as the T-shirt says. Just because that was not something that had been building for even a couple of months. I knew change was needed. I always kind of go back to that whole rebranding mess that they look, and me and you've talked offline on a couple of this. I wish I would have had the relationship with Eric that I do now. That what he didn't know, he didn't know. I don't think Eric would have ever dreamed that TNA would have made millions in profits ever, because I don't believe that's the story that he was told. He was told, "Hey, come in. We need your help," or whatever it may be. And because the rebranding, and I'm just saying this as a one of many factors. Get rid of that 6-sided ring. Let's get out of Orlando. Your talent here, they all need a facelift or let go. We're going to bring in this whole new slew of talent. I mean, there was radical change across the board, and every indicator from our partners, it was not a good thing. So my kind of scratching my head started in 2011. So, you say, way the world lifted off, probably somewhere in 2011 and 12. And then obviously by the end of 13, I knew we are headed down the wrong train track in so many ways. And we were.
So listen, I know that this has to be frustrating. But I just want to ask, because we know eventually the Carters do sell and they let this thing go. Not part of it, but almost every bit of it. And I don't think any of that was ever really made public, but you and I both hear things. From my understanding, the Toby Keith offer didn't necessarily put any money in the Carters' pockets. It just righted the ship, caught up some receivables, and it was a new investment. And now we're partners in this thing together. There wasn't necessarily a big payday for the Carters, right?
We never got there. Remember,
Okay.
that to me is it's the what if that will never be answered.
Yes.
Had Bob Carter said, "I want X amount of dollars for this, and this is why," he
It
would
could
have.
have been a conversation, but we never got that far.
What? Again, it's a completely set of different circumstances because you can show revenue. Now,
Yes.
you can show a lot of expenses and a lot of payables, but you can also show at least 22 million revenue.
Right.
When the later, when the Spike deal was gone and the Corrigan and then the Anthem and all that, that revenue was nowhere close to that, pal. I mean, it's a completely different set of circumstances.
It's just crazy to me to think what could have been, but now you've resigned, and I'm sure people at your house and your friends are saying, well, what's next? Did Karen and some of your friends like, oh, I don't know, Mr. Sadler, think you were crazy for trying to do this again?
Karen didn't. Karen was 100% engaged in, you can do this.
Right.
You can do this. We didn't know what he's going to look like. We really didn't. We knew, and I told myself, let's really look at the landscape. Because I look at 2014, 2015, 2016. That's kind of the story of my post TNA years. Because by the end of 2016, I was going back into Anthem / Impact. But 2014, January, February, March, April, was really me just kind of making phone calls and getting the lay of the land and diving into independent wrestling. I mean, like I'd never done before. Just really looking, I looked at WWE through a whole new lens as much as possible. I just really took 60, 90 days to just kind of drill down on the landscape. Hermie, again, was pretty energized in that, yeah, man, let's, I'll help you anyway. You know, Herbie's not per se the wrestling expert, but he's like, I'll help you any way I can. You kind of lead me in a direction you want me to go turn over rocks, and I will. And so that was kind of the whole kind of look out. And at this time, you know, Kevin Sullivan was no longer with them. And so, you know, me and
Kevin
him,
Sullivan, the production guy, not the
yeah,
devil.
you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Sully, you're right.
Yeah.
And look, yeah, I mean, so, you know, I don't say continued our friendship, but, you know, our conversations on, all right. And look, a lot of this will run together. Like, was it January, February, March? When did this come out? But no, and I say we, me, Sully, Karen, you know, a small group of us yeah, let's go do something. Toby is definitely going to be there. If we can make something happen, let's go give it a shot.
There's lots of social media buzz that you guys created using a hashtag. It's coming. Did you have in your mind's eye a handful of guys you wanted to lock down as far as featured talent or television networks you thought you could get maybe a conversation with? Or
I mean, here's what, so we'll call it the it's coming, the hashtag it's coming. I don't think Sully, I don't think Karen, that was to really just kind of create buzz.
yeah, build some anticipation.
I never dreamed that a simple little YouTube video that would start getting that many views, or, I mean, it started, and I don't want to oversell this, but Conrad, it surprised me, like, oh wow, people do care what I'm doing, you know, because it was, you know, not just from a talent perspective, but from a leadership role. It was, you know, I didn't leave on a high note, if you will. I remember the last TVs that I produced, because I was on headsets, AJ and Nick Aldis and the Title Switch, and the last set of Impact tapings I worked in. I'm trying to think, because I think Eric and them were gone, and, you know, I don't know all the players in the deal, but I was on headsets and Dixie was 2 seats down. I was kind of in my element producing a lot of stuff. And I can remember thinking, man, it could be so simple and easy. Knowing in my mind, this is first, second week of December, that I'm resigning or thinking about resigning at that time. And so when I left and I got phone calls, I mean, AJ Styles told me later that when he heard about my resignation, he knew that things internally were much worse off than he ever dreamed of. And I got that vibe, and phone calls and having conversations. And I didn't expect this, but people were like, okay, if he's out, what don't we know? And I didn't really think that part of it through, because in my eyes, TNA had really run with me without the helm since January of 2010, essentially, or a month or two before that. But I got a lot of phone calls saying, okay, the one of the owners left,
Right.
for lack of a better word. And so, you know, I don't say me and Sully were having fun with it, but we were just kind of creating noise. And those videos started getting buzz. And then, you know, the name of the company, Global Force Wrestling, and I started thinking through that. And then, if we're going to do this, as we both know, I got to figure out the IP, the LLC, got to do the ink, got to do this, got to do that, you know, started putting those legal building blocks in place. And okay, in the state of Tennessee, you got to have a board of directors, and okay, how are we going to do that? Just all the legal mumbo jumbo, but the building blocks, I had made up my mind, had conversations with Toby about that. And look, he was cool with everything. And let's lock in some social media handles and some YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And is like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's do building blocks and not getting too far of it. But again, you asked this about the talent. I started, I mean, literally started. I called it a database or a Rolodex or whatever you want. I don't know what we originally called it, but anyway, just the amount of talent. It was amazing to me as the wrestling business from 2002 to 2000, we'll call it 14, just the accessibility. And nowadays, God almighty, Conrad, I mean, you know, Mania weekend or Royal Rumble weekend or Full Gear weekend or Double or Nothing, just all the shoulder events. There's so much wrestling going on in the world. It's amazing. I mean, it is amazing how much is out there. And that was in 2014 is when I began to see it is a different time starting an organization than it was in 2002.